Alrighty, last but certainly not least, we save the best for the last, the NFL Championship weekend highlights and Super Bowl preview. Well, Tom Brady does it again as the Buccaneers defeat the Green Bay Packers 31-26. Tom Brady now going to his 10th Super Bowl and trying to take or capture his 7th ring. Michael, do you think Tom Brady is the greatest of all time after going to his 10th Super Bowl and in his first year with the Buccaneers?
Even though I hate to say it, I do think so. And I think anyone who disagreed, I think him making the Super Bowl this year pretty much settles it.
Yeah, and I mean, for a long time, I always said Peyton Manning was the greatest, and Tom Brady was a system quarterback. He was under Belichick. Belichick was the real reason they were successful. But I mean, Brady was able to reach a Super Bowl in his first year without Belichick, and Belichick didn't even make it to the playoffs in his first year. And I think I saw a stat recently that said wins without Tom Brady for Belichick, won in 23 years. Brady's playoff wins without Belichick in 1 year is 3. I mean, he already has more wins without Belichick in less time. I mean, it's just crazy what he was able to do. Let's switch gears now to the Packers. Is Aaron Rodgers still in a Packers uniform, Michael?
I think if they were going to move on from him, they would have done it when they made the coaching switch. But I think Aaron Rodgers is pretty happy as long as they continue to be successful. I think he'll be happy, and I think he likes the new head coach. So,
Well, I mean, they need to get better players around him. And certainly he's got a pretty solid team, but you might need another one or two receivers. You might need another tight end, maybe another corner. I mean, Jair Alexander is good, but Kevin King, I don't know what his problem was. He's not very good. Should have drafted a linebacker. I mean, they have a lot of problems. And then of course last year they go out and draft Jordan Love in the first round. That didn't make any sense. I think that kind of made Rodgers mad. And I think Rodgers either wants the Packers to get another weapon for him, or to give him a contract extension and play at least 2 more years and then give it up to Jordan Love. But it's crazy what is happening. Also, it's really shocking. The Packers have had a history of having quarterbacks that were very good. Bart Starr, Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre have been playing with the Packers for a combined 33 years and only 2 Super Bowls. That's really crazy because you would think they'd have more. Hey, Michael, why do you think the Packers have been so successful but only have had 2 Super Bowls within the last 33 years?
I think coaching, especially when they were under, I forget it, Mike McCarthy, and I also just think that they have had solid teams, but I think coaching is the main thing. And also, there were some years where, like, I think that the team itself wasn't really good, or they were good, but they just have holes in them. And so I think that's the main reason.
Well, I mean, Mike McCarthy was not a bad coach. He managed to win a Super Bowl, and Aaron Rodgers was not a household name when he won the Super Bowl. I think it was after he captured his first ring, then he became a household name. So I don't know if it was for Mike McCarthy, but I just think Aaron Rodgers hasn't been able to deliver in some games that he was supposed to. And yes, of course, the Packers don't have the team sometimes, but I mean, Rodgers, he should have probably ran it in for a touchdown. They should have went for it on 4th down. That was probably Matt LaFleur's problem. But Rodgers he should have made a few plays in that championship game. And I think if he would have made some of those, they would have won the game. He did throw an interception. I don't think he looked as sharp enough. And I think sometimes some of the blame has to go with Aaron Rodgers. But that's neither here nor there. All right. Recently I saw or heard Scotty Miller run the Dan Patrick show and said he's faster than Tyreek Hill. Michael, do you think Scotty Smoke Miller is faster than Tyreek the Cheetah Hill?
I don't think anyone's going to be faster until I see proof.
Yeah, I mean, Tyreek Hill is so fast, and I don't think Scotty Miller was trying to provoke the bear here. I just think they said, you know what, I'm faster. I believe it. Scotty Miller is fast, but I just don't think he's faster than Tyreek Hill because Tyreek Hill's nickname is literally the Cheetah. But we'll see what happens. It's gonna be a good game in my opinion. What do the Packers do next now that they lost another NFC Championship game? What should they do in the offseason?
I think they definitely need secondary help, especially at corner outside of J.R. Alexander. Uh, I think, like I said, they could use another receiver, and depending on what they do with Rodgers, if I'm the Packers, I would at least consider the future because you don't know how much longer he is going to play. But
Well, do you think Jordan Love is the future of the Packers?
I'm not sure until I haven't seen enough of him. I don't think he's dressed a game yet. So
Yeah, I mean that's
maybe
great.
he might be, but I just haven't seen proof of it.
Well, I mean, yeah, they drafted him in the first round. They traded up to get him, but yet they haven't played him, and they haven't even dressed him. And I think that's just strange. Just maybe Tim Boyle is a good backup quarterback, but it just it doesn't make any sense to me. So is there a chance the Buccaneers can knock down the Chiefs?
I definitely think so, especially you have Tom Brady, but I think they are going to have to play really well in order to do it.
Well, I mean, yeah, you got a point there. I think the Chiefs don't really have a flaw. However, they have lost both of their offensive linemen, Eric Fisher, and there was another guy too. I can't remember the guy's name, but those are big. Those are big time losses, and I think the Buccaneers are going to be able to capitalize that. But other than that, that's the only flaw. And I think the difference between the Packers and Chiefs is the Packers have a lot of flaws in that team outside of Aaron Rodgers. And you look at the Chiefs, you can't really think of a flaw. They have a good defense. They have a good offense. I mean, they have Mahomes, they have Kelsey, they have Tyreek Hill. Then on the defensive side, you got Frank Clark, Chris Jones, Tyrann Mathieu. The linebacking core is a little shaky, but it's still very solid. And it's probably better than half the league. So we'll see what happens, but it's going to be hard for the Buccaneers to be, even though I do think they have a big chance. And it was reported that the Buccaneers are the NFC team, so they got to choose either if they could wear the home or away, and they have decided to choose the away jerseys. By the way, Tom Brady's 4-1 when wearing his away jerseys, and the last 10 of the last 13 teams to win the Super Bowl has won their away jerseys. So that's another interesting stat. And last but not least, in the NFC Championship game side of things, um, do the Buccaneers, or should say, let me rephrase that question. Was Bruce Arians the reason why the Buccaneers won, or is it just mostly because of Tom Brady?
I think it was a combination of both. I think the defense also helped getting all those turnovers. So I think it was more just a team effort, and I don't think the Packers really played up to their what they're capable of. So I just think it was a combination of a lot of things.
Well, yeah. If you saw if you followed the Buccaneers the last few years, they were very close, and I think the only thing they were missing was a quarterback. And of course, Jameis Winston threw 30 touchdowns, but he threw 30 interceptions. And I think Bruce Arians saw that, you know what, we need a quarterback, and if Tom Brady's on the market, we're going to try to go for him. We're just going to put all our chips on the table, and we're going to go all in. I think that was a great move by Bruce Arians. I never thought of him being that good of a coach, but I think he's become a better coach. And he even said on a lot of interviews, he just lets Tom Brady coach. Sometimes he says he just sits back and, he lets the 6-time Super Bowl champion do it. And I think that's an excellent game plan. I think he was also trying to prove somehow that he was better than Belichick, even though that's not true. But I think he was just trying to prove a point there. But yeah, I think that defense is good. And a lot of people say, it was a team effort, but I think it was more of a defensive effort just because that Buccaneers defense was able to get 2 turnovers on the Packers. They were able to stop them again. Brady threw 3 interceptions, so he didn't play his best, but that defense was able to deliver. What do you think of that Buccaneers defense, Michael?
I think it's a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I was still had questions about their pass rush and their secondary, but they've been playing pretty good, and yeah, they've been
Yeah,
playing a lot better than I expected them.
if you look at the defense, their secondary is probably the weak point, but they looked really good against the Packers. That defensive line, of course, will start with Jason Pierre-Paul's an outside linebacker. You get Devin White, the linebacker, Ndamukong Suh, Vita Vea. They just got so many good players. And of course, Ndamukong Suh finally gets revenge on Aaron Rodgers. He finally gets to go to a Super Bowl. But yeah, that defense has not many flaws, and the great play calling by the defensive coordinator, Todd Bowles. Now we go over to the AFC Championship game, and the Chiefs, well, they win again. They're slowly becoming the new New England Patriots. They get a 38-24 win over the Bills, led by Patrick Mahomes. What takeaways did you take from that game in the Chiefs versus Bills, Mike?
I just think that the Bills didn't necessarily look like they were ready. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Chiefs and Bills also played earlier in the season. I think it was on a Tuesday, and the
Yeah.
same thing happened. So I don't know if it's just like the Chiefs bring out the worst in the Bills or what, but I didn't think the Bills played very good.
Well, and I think the Bills are still 1 or 2 years away. They're clearly not the Chiefs, and I think the Chiefs are just that much better than just the whole NFL, in my opinion, if they're able to beat the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl. But yeah, I think the Bills are still a year away. Josh Allen still has to work on some things. That defense needs to get better. We'll see what happens, but yeah, the Chiefs are just good. That was what game I took away. Um, what do you think the Bills need to go into the offseason, or what do you think the Bills need to work on going into the offseason, Michael?
I think pretty much defense.
Yeah.
I think they could use it just about everywhere on the defense.
Well, if you remember last year during the offseason, they went out and acquired Stephon Diggs. And I think that was an excellent move because Stephon Diggs, I think, played this year like an elite receiver, which I think he is. I'm not sure he's top five, but he's an elite receiver. And that just changed Josh Allen's game tremendously. And of course, Brian Daboll deserves some credit, their offensive coordinator. But again, what Josh Allen was able to do in the offseason when they acquired Stephon Diggs, I think if you acquire a top tight end for Josh Allen, that team can be scary. So I still think the Bills are a year away, but yeah, that's I think what the Bills need to do in the offseason. Need to acquire more talent for Josh Allen, get a better defense, and just learn from experience. What did you think about what Stephon Diggs did after the game of just waiting and looking at the Chiefs celebrating? What did you think about that, Michael?
I didn't really think too much of it. I think every player does that where, after like they lose, especially in the playoffs, they kind of do that just to like, I guess, cope with losing and use that as kind of motivation. So I think that's what I think of it. I think he's just going to use it to get better.
Yeah, I mean, he was just staring there for a long time. That was kind of weird, but we'll see what happens. Stephon Diggs, very good receiver, and the Bills, they'll probably be there next year, either against the Chiefs or the Ravens. Um, Now we get to Super Bowl week. Who is the X factor for both the Chiefs and the Buccaneers?
I think for the Chiefs, I can go with a lot of players. I think Patrick Mahomes, obviously. I could go Tyreek Hill, but I actually think that it's going to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire because I think if they can get the running game going, I think they'll have a hard time stopping Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce.
And what about who's the X factor for the Buccaneers?
Uh, for the Bucks, I would say it's probably Tom Brady or Gronk, just because they're both ridiculously good in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, Gronk didn't really play great last week, but he was able to get that big reception that ended up leading into a field goal that ended up winning the game for the Buccaneers. So, yeah, you're certainly right. Rob Gronkowski, we'll see what happens. He hasn't had much of a good season this year, but you never know. The guy is one of the best tight ends in pro football history, and when you need him, he'll be there. I think the X factor for both teams, for the Chiefs, a lot of people would say Patrick Mahomes or Tyreek Hill, but I'm going to say Travis Kelce because – and here's an interesting point that I got out from Dan Orlowski, who is who's a former quarterback and currently an analyst for ESPN. He said that that teams need to be able to double team Tyreek Hill, and then when they get to the red zone, double team Travis Kelce. And it seems like no team ever really does that, so they both dominate. And I feel like Travis Kelce, and he even said the best player outside of quarterback in the NFL is Travis Kelce, which is shocking because a lot of people say Aaron Donald is. But what Travis Kelce is able to do, he's able to give Mahomes a big time weapon, especially in the red zone. And I feel like when Travis Kelce is having a great game, the Chiefs are going to win no matter what happens. So if they can get Travis Kelce involved, I could see him being Super Bowl MVP as well. I know that's kind of no tight end has ever won it, but he's not really a tight end. He's a wide receiver. I mean, he's better than most of the receivers in all of football. So I'm going to say Travis Kelce is the X factor for the Chiefs. And for the Buccaneers, you could say Tom Brady. You could see a lot of players, but I'm going to say Scotty Smoke Miller. He was big in the game, in the NFC Championship game versus the Packers. And I think if you can get him involved early, and of course, Antonio Brown's going to be playing, but if you can get Scotty Miller involved, that Buccaneers team is going to be hard to stop. So again, my X factor for the Buccaneers is Scotty Miller, while the Chiefs is Travis Kelce. How How big of loss is is Eric Fisher for the Chiefs? He's the best, one of their best tackles. He's out now. How big of loss is that for Kansas City, Michael?
I think it's a pretty big loss because obviously he's their best tackle and he's probably one of the best tackles in the league. And Mahomes has already been hurt in the playoffs, so I think that's a huge loss for them.
Well, yeah, I mean the Buccaneers' defensive line is scary too. I mean, they got so many pass rushers, and when you don't have a guy like Eric Fisher to help protect the best player in football, that's not good, and that's definitely not what the Chiefs want. All right, so Super Bowl prediction: who wins, and what's the final score, Michael?
I think it's going to be a close game. I think it could go either way, but I think it's probably going to be 31-28 Chiefs.
Well, that's a pretty good score, but I think it's going to be super high scoring, and I think it's going to be the highest scoring game ever with the two combined teams, which I think the highest scoring was Super Bowl 52 with the Patriots and the Eagles. But I'm going to say the Chiefs win 42-35. And of course, what we saw earlier in the year is the Chiefs dominated the Buccaneers in the first half. The Buccaneers came back, but it was still not, they were still short. And what's crazy about that game is Tony Romo actually predicted the Chiefs and Buccaneers would beat each other in the Super Bowl. And here we are. They're playing in it. And Tony Romo was even calling the game. So I'm very glad Jim Nantz and Tony Romo was calling the game. You, Michael, you say you like Tony Romo a lot. Are you glad that he's doing the game?
Yeah. I mean, Tony Romo knows everything.
More than Joe Buck, right?
Yeah.
All
absolutely.
Right. So I'm excited for that game. I think it's be the highest scoring game ever. I feel like I could see maybe one or two punts combined. And I say Travis Kelce is the MVP. Who do you have for Super Bowl MVP, Michael?
I think it's probably going to end up being Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
But I could also see it being Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be certainly interesting. It seems like pretty much the Buccaneers are gonna pick their poison. Do they want to shut down Travis Kelce or do they want to shut down Tyreek Hill? Even though we can basically take what Dan Orlovsky from ESPN said of you double team Tyreek Hill and double team when you go to the red zone, you double team Travis Kelce. I always thought that was a great idea. And of course, Jim Nantz, Tony Romo calling the game. Even though I do like Chris Collinsworth and Al Michaels and, Joe Buck and Troy Aikman are certainly fine. I'm not a huge fan of the ESPN crew, but I'm glad that Jim Nantz and Tony Romo are calling the game. I think they're the best when they call football games. But, Michael, you have the Chiefs winning, right? 31-28, was that right? And then I have the Chiefs winning 42-35. So it's going to be a good game. We'll see what happens. But, yeah, thanks for joining us, Michael.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Sports Town Podcast, or the STP Pod for short. You can find us on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and much more. We release new episodes every Wednesday and Friday. Also, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Sports Town Podcast. If you want to check out more videos of the Sports Town Podcast, click on the left. If you want to subscribe to the channel, click on the right.